I somehow shoved the bow into the ground, because it's dangerous at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
I snap an arrow, the arrow that's in my bow, knocked up, ready to
Not,
roll
yeah.
into the ground. I fall over backwards, take the blind with me, with my dad in the blind, and start rolling down the hill in the blind with my dad.
Hello, and welcome to the Wild Dispatch. I'm Robin, and I'm back with more skills and stories from the wild. We have another great episode for you today. If you happen to catch the little audio nugget in my intro this time, then there's your clue. Turkey season is fast approaching in California, and that's where I live, so I thought I'd take this as an opportunity to see if I could find any experts who'd be willing to come on the show and share their knowledge and stories. So I'm excited to say I've managed to convince a local turkey whisperer, a gentleman with many beards hanging from his belt. Uh, his name's Joe Costarella. He's an avid turkey hunter. He hunts actually predominantly with a bow now and really enjoys the skill set required to bring a gobbler in close, as close as 5 feet, it sounds like. I'm excited for you to hear this one, guys. It was a fantastic learning experience for me. I'm hoping I'm going to take some of these skills and apply them this coming week here up in Northern California. That's all for now. I'm going to stop waffling. On with the show. Joe Costarella, welcome to the podcast.
How are we doing?
Good, man. Good. I'm excited. I'm glad that we managed to sneak you in just before turkey season in California, at least. I mean, how long we got?
Yeah.
It's a couple of weeks to go, I think.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's almost just about 2 weeks.
Okay, 2 weeks. I'm excited. I'm also. This is slightly selfish, but I'm hoping that you're going to prevent me from making some stupid mistakes with your advice today.
Well, that's part of turkey hunting.
Uh, so, what have you been up to lately? I mean, it's been a long, rainy season as
Yeah.
this winter. Has there been anything fun that you managed to get up to outdoors?
This whole rainy season, I always look forward every winter. I look forward to chasing a lot of waterfowl, hanging out with friends in the duck blind and doing that. So we spent a good amount of time chasing birds this year.
Nice.
Um, Overall, the season was okay. We had to work for them a lot more than years past, but it was good. It was fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Any particular moments or stories that spring to mind from this year?
Yeah, we had a couple really, really good hunts. We had a three-man limit of greenheads with 18 honkers mixed in, which is usually pretty difficult to do. And my buddy shot a band that same hunt, so it was kind of a unique experience for especially a local hunt. The valley was a little tougher. We had a few really good shoots. I got to take my dog this year, who is 12, um, and she hunted a lot with me till she was about 4 or 5, and then she just kind of we hunted her too hard when she was young, and you could tell that any tough days for her, any good days hunts for us is a tough day for her, and I don't like to beat her up that bad. So I took her on a couple hunts this year, which I didn't take her last year. I don't like to see her in pain and sleep for 3 days. But I took her on a couple hunts this year, and she made a couple of really good retrieves. It was like riding a bike. I mean, picked it up like it was no problem.
Nice. So it all worked out, and
Yeah.
she wasn't too wrecked afterwards.
She was a little tired, but I definitely was excited about it. She did a blind retrieve at about 125 yards, where you cast them out and whistle them to stop, and use hand signals to direction them out. And normally that's something that you need to stay on top of and practice a lot. And she hadn't done it in a couple of years, but she picked it right back up like she never stopped. Um, she always knows
Nice.
too. I mean, I leave to get up, let up. I leave for work really early, and she knows the difference from like it's almost like she knows it's waterfowl season, and I'm not leaving to go to work. I'm leaving to go hunting. So she comes downstairs in the morning when it's hunting time. It's pretty funny. Even when I don't like show her that like, hey, I'm packing the truck, look, my shotgun,
Yeah.
she just knows somehow.
A sixth sense. You
Yeah,
also
yeah, definitely.
you also said it's an impressive thing to get that amount of birds locally. Where's local?
Hmm.
Where's local for you?
Oh, I live in Petaluma, California, Sonoma County. Locally, it's a lot of private property, and public land takes a lot of work to get into, and scout everything plays a big role in it. So, that species of birds with that amount of geese also is no easy task.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it sounds impressive, man. I'm yet to
Thank you.
delve. I'm yet to delve fully into the
It's
waterfowl world myself, but I have been madly chasing turkeys for the last few years.
yeah, it's a it's if you like it, it's a passion that you know I don't pick up a lot of new hobbies just because the hobbies that I have to take up way too much of my time and way too much money as it is. So
Dude, it's so true. It's so true.
yeah,
There's so many things, even just within the world of like outdoorsmanship, I guess is the term. I say that with
yeah,
inverted brackets. But there's so many different things like spear fishing because I'm right next to the ocean here in Fort
yeah.
Bragg in the coast of California, Northern California. I haven't even I just this just isn't time to do all these things and do
No,
them
there's
at a
not.
level.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up spearfishing. Ever since they closed abalone, I haven't been diving, and I wish that I still did. I still have all the equipment to do it, but it's like one thing after another. I stopped abalone diving and got into more pig hunting in the spring instead of ab diving. So it's never stops. It's year round.
It is. It
Yeah.
is. So I'm getting a bit ahead of myself though. I guess the best thing we can do first of all is if you can just give a quick intro as to who you are, what you're about, what you do,
Hmm.
what you're passionate about, and what you like to do in your spare time. Just a quick overview for people
Yeah,
before
yeah.
we start diving deeper.
I'm Joe Costarella. I'm 35 years old. Um, I live in Roner Park. I grew up in Petaluma. I run my parents' wholesale seafood company based out of San Francisco. So we're distributors. We deal with a lot of family ran restaurants, and um, I am married. I have one son um, who is my wife likes to call him Feral. He's a handful. He's a great kid, very compassionate, very loving, but it's a lot. My wife is one of my best hunting partners. Um, I absolutely love everything to do with the outdoors, hunting, fishing, any kind. It doesn't really matter. You name it, I've dabbled in it already in California if we can. Um, Big into archery. I've done a lot of rifle hunts, but I haven't actually. This year was the first time my rifle got used in probably, I don't know, 5 to 7 years. I mean, I'm not exclusively bow only, but pretty much am. It's mostly bow.
Yeah,
You know,
I can
yeah.
definitely relate to that. It's a funny thing, right? Like at least for me, the last 5 or 6 years getting into like being out in the wild and hunting. First step is buying a gun, and that's the kind of
Hmm.
the angle you go. But then I've got to admit, like I think I hadn't even made it through my first season, and I'd
Yeah,
already discovered bow hunting. And
yeah,
once you kind of manage to find some success with the bow, the level of like sense of achievement is,
yeah.
I
It's
think,
it's so much harder.
yeah.
It's so much harder, and you're right. The achievement is that's way more rewarding. I think.
And it's not to say that like hunting with a rifle in no way it's not valid or anything. And I'm sure at some point I'm just in the position right now I have a bit more time and I really love pouring my energy into something new. And I
Yeah.
think it's like bow hunting is a really good way for me to learn a bit quicker about how to be in the woods, you know?
Hmm.
But I'm sure at some point when I'm really busy and don't have time, I'm going to grab that rifle and I'm going to get out and still have a good experience, you know? So
Hmm.
it's
Definitely,
definitely, I guess
definitely.
each thing for everyone to their own, I guess is the expression. But
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
I'm a bit obsessed at the moment.
Same, same. You know, this year when the rifle got pulled out, my wife used it. She drew a Shirus Moose tag in Idaho,
Oh,
and the
wow.
plan was to use the bow because she's a diehard bow hunter. Um, she's killed, I don't know, 15 animals or so, 20 animals with her bow, or it altogether, and only a couple with a rifle. So, she likes to shoot her
Yeah,
bow,
decent.
and she's good at it too. But this year we pulled the rifle out as kind of like a backup. We'll see, it's a once in a lifetime tag. And we had a lot of time and a lot of money invested into this hunt. So we said, okay, we're going to, spring bow. And after she shot that moose with the rifle, not taking away from it in any way, but we were both kind of like, man, that would have been quite the experience with the bow. It would have been a lot different. It would have been a lot different. We were both still very excited that it happened the way things happened, but either way. But
Yeah,
we're mostly bow hunters.
yeah, it makes sense. I understand your motivations for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so you said that you spend a lot of time around Petaluma, but what I usually like to do when I talk to my guests is just get a little bit more context, their story growing up, how they end up getting feral out in the wild in those areas. So if you can tell me a little bit about Petaluma, that area, what it was like growing up, and
Growing up, kind of like my childhood. Yeah.
yeah,
So growing up in Petaluma, it's a small chicken town. A lot of dairies. Uh, I grew up fishing a lot in all the lakes, the ocean a lot. I was on the ocean at 5 years old fishing with my dad. This is all sport for fun. My dad did commercial fish when he was younger,
okay.
before he opened the company, but it was all for fun. And grew up, catching crawdads in the creek, literally. Chasing, there was a creek across the street from my house, so I spent a lot of time there as a little kid. Um, Grew up running dogs with deer hunting in the Sonoma Marin area with a big group of guys. Um, Eventually started hunting on, my dad and I started hunting on our own. Um, and it's taken off from there. A lot of sports, a lot of family activity. Um, yeah, that's,
There's so many things you just said there. I'm
yeah.
like, oh, I want to hear more about that. So first of all, being from England, the whole concept, this might sound silly, but like chasing crawdads is a new and very exciting concept to me.
I'm with you because it's a new thing for you. Yeah.
So it was only, I think, like there's an area up one of the rivers near me where there's an amazing hot springs that I don't think burned down like 100 years ago,
Okay.
and I went there for my birthday. I think it was like my 38th birthday was when I was first chasing crawdads. So
Uh-huh.
to say I'm a late bloomer is an
That's all right.
understatement. But how do you? People have told me different things about getting crawdads. Like obviously just a net or something like that. But someone told me recently just getting a can of dog food and punching some holes in it and throwing it in the river there. Is that how did you go?
So I think we were doing catch and release. So
Oh,
and
okay.
we were also taking them home a lot of times to feed. Tangent. We had a African pixie toad uh, in our garage that grew to the size of, like, when it died, it was the size of a dinner plate. So I mean, it was like a 3-4 pound frog. It was a big thing. So I would catch crawdads and bring it back and feed it crawdads. Because we used to feed it live rats, and you can only go get mice and rats, every so often. So if you're trying to catch crawdads to get them going and catch a lot of them and make a crawdad boil, yeah, a trap and a can of cat food will do well.
Okay.
We just put some salami or a hot dog on a piece of string and had a net. And, when we got what we needed, we pulled them closer towards us, and that's how we did it.
Okay. That sounds like a good plan. I'm gonna
Yeah,
try that. Um, okay, sweet. And then the other thing is that you said about running hogs. I mean, that's
running dogs.
Oh, running dogs, sorry, but like
Yeah, for
chasing
deer.
pigs. Oh, for deer.
No, no, for
Okay,
deer.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah. So it's kind of a unique thing that still goes on uh, in California. There's some places in the South that still do it, but they get hounds and terriers, and they get a big group of guys, and they set up on a canyon where the whole point is there's guys at the top of the head of the canyon with the dogs and drivers. They're the guys that push the canyons down, and there's guys set up on both sides of the canyon wall. And so when the dogs go out, the dogs are trained to get on the scent of the deer, and then they run the deer out towards the guys that are on stand. And when the deer goes past you, you make a decision if that's a deer you want to shoot or not.
It's a fast decision.
It's a fast decision, and typically you learn really quickly which stands are the best, because the deer are going to go. They're going to go towards the funnels. They're going to go towards the saddles. Um, it was my first introduction to dogs too. You get to learn really quick how smart they are, and how because you get a good dog, it learns the difference between a buck and a doe. It learns how fresh the track is or how fresh the scent is. They're not chasing a deer that was there 2 days ago or last night. They're chasing a deer that's on the scent is fresh. So it was cool. It was my first introduction to talking to a lot of guys who do a lot of big game hunting.
Yeah.
Most of the guys are all old school Italian families, dairy guys, that were hunting out of state before it was cool to hunt out of state. The guy that brought my dad and I into the club, we were with him. He shot his first buck right where Novato High School is now. I mean, it's stuff that old school, like way old school Petaluma, Sonoma, Marin County type stuff.
That's so interesting. It's you must have had some wild experiences. Like I imagine like the energy of the hounds, or I call them the hounds, but the dogs running and the noise of
Dogs
the
going, yeah,
barking, hearing them
yeah.
coming. If that was like your first experience, were you what was your
I was
kind of
young.
role? Were you also how old were you?
Uh, I think I first started doing it when I was 10.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I started jumping in the canyons with guys that I knew, and then got to take stand with my dad. Um, and
What
probably by the time I was about 15, we started doing things on our own, maybe eight, and we're still going. Those guys, a lot of they're deer clubs, so it's Friday through Sunday. And if you want to be part of the club, it's usually Friday through Sunday. Because
okay.
what happens is it's not like you could go off on your own and go hunt your own canyon or go hunt your own bull, right? If you want the guys to show up with the dogs who own the dogs, or if you got a canyon that needs 15 people to hunt it, you it's not worth hunting it if you only have five,
Yes.
right? Because
Yeah.
if you go in there with the dogs and there's nobody to shoot the deer when the deer runs out, it's not worth it. So they want you there. It's important that everybody works together and hunts a lot. And it was a commitment to hunt Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then occasionally on Wednesdays too. So we kind of started doing our own thing also.
And we'll jump into that in a second, but I'm still curious. Forgive me.
Mm-hmm. It's all
Like
right.
what kind of I'm guessing you're using shotguns, or what were you
No
using at that
rifles.
point? Oh, rifle.
Yeah,
So it's like
yeah,
a run
scoped
and gun
rifles.
shot. Like
Yeah,
a
the guys on stand would use scoped rifles, and then the guys that were that pushing the drivers that were in the brush yelling and getting the dogs going and working the dogs. A lot of them use just old school 30-30s lever action open sights, because if they got a shot, it was going to be really close.
yes.
Some guys hunted with pistols. Some guys didn't even carry a gun, because
Huh.
it was not that they couldn't or didn't have a tag. They just wanted to go run the canyons with their dogs.
Yes. It
So
does seem like that's
that's
a thing as well. Like there's a lot of pride in for dog
mm-hmm.
owners, people that are training them up to do
Yeah,
this job. Is as much about the success that they achieve with their dogs.
yeah. A lot of guys do that, especially like if you I've done dogs with for bear a few times
Mm.
when we could, and that's usually more. Those guys were all hound guys, and they spent a lot of time on it. And it was really interesting because if they could tell by by the pitch of the bark that they knew what was going on. And he'd say, that bear's bayed up. Well, how do you know? Well, because you hear that bark, that's Misty, and then you hear that bark, that's Josie, and Josie's usually right next to whoever dog or whatever, and they'd be able to tell really the difference between a bear on the run, a bayed bear, a treed bear. It'd be the same with the guys chasing for deer. They'd understand which dog was, you know, running off by itself in the canyon because he knew it by the bark,
Yeah.
or they knew which dog was, on a hot scent of a buck.
Yes. There's like the specific sounds.
Specific, yeah, yeah.
It's funny. I was just over the winter. I was just in South Africa, and it was kind of by chance. I was hunting in an area in the Eastern Cape. Excuse me. And the local farmer who on his property I was doing some hunting there, he just called me up out of the blue and was like, the hounds are running in the area and they've like treed a roycat, which is basically like a small mountain lion, because they also they run cats and they run other predators to try and manage the stress that it puts on the local population there. And that was a whole experience as well. And I didn't actually get there in time because I was like nowhere near, and I had to end up running the whole way down a mountain.
Yep.
With like a pack and a bow and everything to try and help out, because they didn't actually have any firearms with them. But you can hear the distinct sounds. You hear there's a very distinct noise. I won't embarrass myself by trying to mimic the noise. But
I was thinking about doing the same thing. I was going to give you a howl, and I was like, nah, don't even try.
It's going to be some people who are houndsmen are instantly like unfollow.
Yeah. Seriously.
But yeah, it's really interesting, and it's something I definitely I'll get. I mean, at some point in the future, I can ask you more about it, or I'll get someone else who's like a proper hound guy on to tell me all the secrets.
I can get you a couple guys' names that would do it. It's a trip what they know and how much they work their dogs and love their dogs.
I had no idea that it's still allowed. And this is just I guess like me being naive or not really understanding how everything works in California, but I assumed that all hound hunting was like out of bounds now because of
for bears it is.
For bears, but I think I just assumed when I heard that it wasn't allowed for bears that means it's a blanket thing for everything. But that's interesting that it's actually still allowed for.
Which it's really sad too, because when you use dogs, especially for bear hunting, you put a bear in a tree, right?
Yeah.
You go to the tree, and this is of course after tracking it, finding the track for the dogs to let go on, reading the track to understand that the track is something that you want to chase after, because you can tell size by the size of the track if it's a bear you want to let the dogs go on, and you can also figure out how fresh this scent is. But it's the best way to choose, really, if this is something you want to, if it's a boar or a sow, how big it is, how old it is. It's there is no split decision on the side of a mountain if you're rifle hunting. Is this what I want? Or there's no 2 mile stalk with a bow to walk in on a bear to say, hey, this bear's a sow. So it's the most selective breeding or selective harvesting that you can do, and it's also the most successful.
Yeah.
So, along with baiting. So it's like, really, if we wanted to manage our bear populations, why would you take away our two biggest tools that allow us to manage our bear populations?
Yeah.
That's the hard part.
Yeah,
I don't agree with it.
No, for sure. And I think it's just it's an optical thing, right? For people who maybe don't understand the culture, it's an optics thing. I can understand why. From an outside perspective, people might see it in a different light. But anyway, before we get down that rabbit hole of discussion, I'd love to hear a bit more about your experiences fishing. You mentioned that you were going out with your dad fishing, but obviously there must be a huge culture of fishing in your family.
Extremely.
And it became commercial, or it was commercial, but then it expanded. Tell me a little bit about that whole thing.
My dad grew up on the East Coast. I'm 100% Italian, so it's on both sides.
Okay.
And both sides have a fishing background to them, on my mom's side and my dad's side. My dad grew up on the East Coast and came out to California when he was 18. Kind of a random story, hitchhiked across the United States with a friend, following the Grateful Dead, just total 70s, all about it. And got a job on a party boat, eventually got his 100-ton license and started running party boats. and then also was doing commercial fishing on the side. And then my grandpa on my mom's side was a drag boat skipper out of San Francisco. And when my dad met my mom, and they started dating, and so my dad knew who my grandpa was already, just from being on the wharf. And they opened up the company, and my dad still had a big love for fishing, but he stopped fishing commercially. So we'd fish a lot for fun. Um, when salmon was open, we'd fish salmon. My I was very fortunate to work on the live bait receiver in the summers, so I'd be at work for live anchovies. So I'd be at work at 4 a.m. and I'd be off by 10, and my family shop is right across the lagoon, so I'd usually fish from 10:30 till dark every day.
Wow.
And I'd still get my summer work in because I was working. I'd work 6 hours in the morning. So, I mean, you name it, we chased it in California if you can,
Yeah.
especially in the ocean. Bluefin tunas, albacore, salmon, rockcod, everything we've tried to fish for it.
That's amazing.
It's
Do you
fun.
any wild stories or anything like that you remember that springs to mind?
Yeah, we were just talking today. I was talking today with a guy with they're talking about giving us September 1st to October 15th, I believe is a possible regulation or a possible season for California for king. And I was telling him, I said, that's if I was to choose, that'd be the option I'd want to go with because that's when all the big fish are here.
This is for
And I
salmon,
remember
right?
this is for salmon, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I just
I
heard this
remember,
morning too.
yeah, I remember one year in one week, my dad and I caught a 38, a 41, and a 44-pound fish all in one week, which is, this was probably 15 years ago or so, but, those are all big trophy quality fish.
Yeah.
Um, what else? I mean, we've seen great white sharks feeding on dead whales. Um, my dad hooked a great white one time outside of Double Point, which is only in about 60, 70 feet of water. So, he couldn't just hit the depths and go. So we chased it around with the boat and, just messing with it. I ate a
Yeah.
salmon that he had on his line and his hook got stuck in the shark's nose. Um,
Wow.
uh,
How did he
you know,
know? But like how
oh,
did
because we
he?
had it to the leader twice.
Oh, so it like came up to the boat.
Yeah, we were only in 70 feet of water. So, we chased it down with the boat. We weren't going to land it, even if we could land it,
Yeah.
but we chased it down with the boat. And, our leaders are only about 5.5, 6 feet long. So we had it to the sinker release looking down in the water at 6 feet. So you could see that the shark was there. It was like a 10-foot, 12-foot shark.
Wow.
Um, the one time when we watched about an 8 to 9 footer feed on a dead whale, and all the blubber was left on top of the dead whale. So they only like to eat the blubber first,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Because
Okay.
it's kind of like a bear when they eat the skin first on salmon, or like when you eat a candy apple, you only eat the caramel first, and then you just kind of eat the apple. It's the same when they feed on dead whales, um, and all the blubber was left on top, and this like 10 footer was jumping out of the water and taking a bite out of the blubber, and then like cookie cuttering his way with his mouth, like and then working his way back down. And it was a little male, and you could tell that he hadn't been eating that much, because his belly wasn't absolutely gorged. And we were looking around, and we said, there's usually a big female. There's a pecking order of how this goes. And we'll get in a pecking order too, like turkeys, which kind of reminds me.
Yeah.
Um, there was a big female that was 21, 22 feet long. I mean, we were in a 22-foot boat, and she went right next to the boat. I mean, I could have reached out and touched her, and she was all in the boat, and she was big. She was really big.
That's
And we had a couple friends on the boat that were dairymen from Petaluma who don't go out on the ocean very much, and they were pretty scared. They were thinking Jaws. Like, no, don't worry. Like, we'll be okay. It doesn't want to eat us. It's got a dead whale to feed on. Uh,
It's funny you say that because I have actually heard. I don't. I recorded another episode a little while ago with previous guest. His name's Isla, and he spent a lot of time out in the ocean. And he's also seen big great whites. I think he said like from his measurements of the judgment with the two of them that were there, you can judge from the tail fin to the what's it called, the
Dorsal.
dorsal fin.
Yeah,
They estimated 24
that's a
foot
big
long,
shark.
and
That's a big
that's
shark.
but they couldn't verify it. There was no way of getting the verification required, but it would be like a
Yeah,
world record great white shark. I
yeah,
mean,
I
it's
believe it.
they can get so
They
big.
can get big. They can get big. Yeah,
Yeah, that's pretty wild, man.
yeah.
So, did you? This is a silly question, but I'm guessing coming from such like a background of fishing, did you ever get sick of having fish on the table all the time?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Especially when the company was new and growing, and we were doing everything we could to keep everything going. We ate a lot of fish, and then when I fished a lot with my dad, uh, yeah, I got tired of fish. I don't even though I see fish every day. I could choose the best quality, the best items that the Bay Area has to offer for seafood wise. I have them. I don't eat them. I don't eat them. You know, I do one or two crab feeds a year with my close friends, because it's more an enjoyment to see them eat crab. I'll bring lobster tails or scallops to deer camp because it's more of a treat to see them eat it than it is for me. And yeah, I mean, I don't, no, no, it's not. Once every 2 months, I'll bring home something for the family.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It's like if too much of anything is even if it's a good thing, that's the
yeah.
difficult thing. I'm wondering, did that ever cause like friction with your folks if they're bringing back fish, which is an amazing thing, right? It's normally an expensive resource to have, and eating.
No, because it was what my mom grew up on, right? So
Oh,
since my
okay.
mom's dad was a commercial fisherman, he ate fish to the day he died. I mean, like 3, 4 times a week. Maybe it's just my generation and I got spoiled that I didn't have to eat fish all the time. But I mean, my nanu had sticky fingers. I mean, when we were younger, he'd walk into the plant and he's family, so he's direct family and he gets whatever he wants. He'd eat fish 3, 4 times a week, maybe 5 times a week. So my
Yeah.
mom was used to it and said, "Okay, this is okay." I didn't grow, I didn't want to eat that much fish, so I didn't.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, yeah, and actually, it's a great way to uh, grease the wheels on private property owners too when you're trying to get access. I'd say, hey, we're working a wholesale seafood company. You know, love to give you some caviar and some oysters if you let me shoot a turkey over there, or if I could take a friend to go shoot a turkey.
I've never even thought about that before. That's
Yeah, yeah,
fantastic. Because it's also often the situation for me. It's like you're trying to get a bit of permission on land or whatever. You're really, at least for me, I don't have much to offer. I mean, I'm like a writer. I'm like, what, Mr. Farmer, can I write you some nice words on your.
exactly.
That
It's like
doesn't
if
care.
you got something good, offer it. I'm right there with you. Yeah. My wife
So,
does HR and finance, so it's like, hey, do you need help with HR and finance? I mean, she's great at her job, but it's they want a tangible thing, either
yeah.
compensation, food, something exquisite, or the days of like, let me help you build fence on your property is not, you're asking a lot there. It doesn't help as much anymore.
So, one more question in this kind of area,
Hit
because it's
me.
something I don't really understand that well, but something
Okay.
I I'm in a lucky position given my proximity to the ocean, and I know a few friends with fishing boats. I Most of the stuff in my freezer is either foraged, fished, or hunted. So I got some fish in there, but like if I'm looking to buy fish in the stores, there's a lot of language written on packaging and tins of tuna, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff around sustainability, ethically caught, all of that
Yeah.
kind of thing. But how much of it is reliable? What's the right language? Do
Yeah.
you mind giving me like a quick
Of
in
course.
like top line of that?
So a lot of it's going to be species specific,
Okay.
because a lot of it really plays on it. I mean, overall, everything, in my opinion, is sustainable. Everything has some type of government regulation that goes on it, whether that be method of catch, whether that be quantity, season dates, the bag limit on it. Um, Other species are going to have stuff on it that is a little bit better. It's also a catch 22 though, because you could buy a certain type of tuna that has, a hand line hook, literally a hand line or a hook and line that comes out of the Maldives that is the best method of catch you could have. And it's one direct tuna fisherman catching the fish by hand, and it gets, you know, is that fish better than a guy that has a long range boat out of San Diego and catches on a long line? That might not be the considered method of catch.
Hmm.
Your carbon footprint's going to be way less if you're
Yeah.
buying a fish out of SoCal, but you know, or Hawaii versus something that's might be more sustainable coming out of South America, so or Southern Pacific.
Okay.
So a lot of it kind of depends on species specific on method of catch, sustainability. You also need to understand where the money comes from. The Monterey Bay Aquarium, it's a non-government organization that can pretty much is funded by the fisheries to give them a rating on whether it's red, green, or yellow, or red, yellow, green, on if it's good for them, for the consumer to eat. You know, it's a lot of it's species specific, like I said, and really understanding what you're diving into, and it's all about your opinion on what you think is fair and what you think is right. Um, for
So is it?
us at Costarellas, we push local as possible.
Mm-hmm.
We push hand cut. We fillet all of our fish as much as possible. Um, Local for us is all of California, because I mean, if you want to have a wild based protein, which fish is the last truly wild based protein, um, you're not always going to have fish that comes out of San Francisco. You might have to have fish that come. I buy a lot of fish that comes right out of your backyard, out of Fort Bragg.
Mm.
Like a lot of fish that comes out of Fort Bragg and Eureka.
Yeah.
The fishing is better over there, and then it gets trucked to us. So I mean, a lot of it's specific.
Yeah.
You know,
It's interesting.
they say like don't buy drag boat fish, which is a heavy fishery out of Fort Bragg.
Okay.
Well, those fishermen have a paid government employee on their boat every single trip. They can't go fishing unless they have one, and they're documenting everything that hits the deck. From the different species of all different species of rock cod, the bycatch and all that kind of stuff. That's a heavy regulated fishery.
Mm.
Why not buy it? Right?
Yeah.
That's how I see it. I mean, it's being looked after like very closely, very closely. Probably better than most on land species that we're allowed to harvest for sport. So I
It's
mean,
interesting.
yeah, they're on top of it,
Yeah.
big time, big time.
So does that information, because it's like, and I'm naive,
That's all right.
perpetually naive, but you
We
just
don't
gave
know
me
what you
like,
don't know, so it's
yeah, yeah.
okay. I
You
mean,
gave me a bunch of like detailed information there about some specific stuff I didn't even know about, even right in my town. So is it easy to access that information? Is it always written on the pack, or how is that info? Is it, you have to like research whatever it is that you're thinking about buying? Is there a way
yeah,
online?
you kind of need to research a little bit more. That's the hard part. I mean, if you're gonna buy fish from, you know, closer to the source, yes, they'll be able to tell you all that stuff. But end consumer, that's one thing that I wish our industry did a little bit better, was self promoting and marketing about it. I mean, yeah, that's a little bit harder for the end consumer to really understand what's going on. You know, I mean, uh, I think it's like I think it's good to look at both sides, right? Like it politically. if you're red or blue, it's important to look at both sides and understand it, and so you understand both sides of the coin, right?
Yeah,
And then you
definitely.
make your own opinion from there. That's what I think. I don't think it's better to understand everything about it and then make your own educated decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. It's great advice, dude. It's actually part of why I'm doing this podcast is I'm trying to talk to as many different people, hear as many
Yeah,
different ideas, opinions, information, and that's definitely helping me learn a lot about something I'm really interested in. So,
yeah, definitely, definitely.
but I'll continue to delve deeper as well. But thanks for sharing your thoughts on
Of
that.
course.
Okay, so into the turkey sandwich, the meat part of the turkey sandwich, I should say,
Uh-huh.
for this podcast. Um, First of all, when did you start hunting turkeys? Was it with your dad or like?
I was with my dad. I was young, 8, 9, maybe younger, maybe
Okay,
younger. Yeah,
and your
yeah.
dad
I
had
was
been
young.
hunting. Your dad had been hunting for a while at that point, had he? Or was he
On
getting
and
into it
off,
too?
on
Okay,
and off. He grew up hunting on the East Coast. Stopped hunting for a long time. I wanted to hunt a lot more than fish. I like hunting more than I like fishing. My dad likes fishing more than he likes hunting.
okay.
Um, so when I was younger, I pushed him to go hunting more. And so, being a good father that he is, he jumped back into it a lot more than he used to.
And it was. I'm guessing shotguns to start with. But when did you start itching to pick up a bow?
We picked up a bow pretty quick. I think I think I shot my first turkey with a bow probably when I was like 13, maybe 14.
Okay,
Um,
nice.
yeah, I was young. Uh, it was kind of funny with the whole bow thing. We didn't have any mentors bow hunting. We had mentors for turkey hunting, um, and he was actually the guy that got us into waterfowl hunting too. A guy by the name of Chris Dobson, who lives in Petaluma, got us into birds. Um, but for bows, we didn't have anybody who really got us going. We were it was it was pretty ugly for the stuff that we were doing now versus what we know now. Um,
What were you
for bow
doing?
hunting, no dry firing,
Oh,
not buying arrows that had full length. Not knowing anything about it. Not it's important to have a mentor going into a lot of hunting sports because you don't have a lot of the mistakes,
yeah.
and we had all the mistakes you could ask for when it came to actually shooting a bow.
It's so hard with anything, I guess, and it's definitely true with hunting. Oh, I can totally relate to that. Like
Yeah,
for a couple of years, I was definitely feeling around in the dark, just hoping for someone to just take pity on me.
yeah, and that's hard. It's hard for a lot of guys. It you know I have friends that are new hunters, and I admit that I don't take them as much as I probably should take them. Because my time's valuable. And not that saying that his isn't, but I want to go with my wife also, and I want to see my friends be succeed. We're a close knit group of guys. Most of my friends all hunt. You know, the 10 guys that I talk to regularly are all hunters. Are all hunters.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple that don't, but they're not getting the phone call every week, you know. So
Okay, so when you were like figuring it out, running around, accidentally dry firing, blowing up your bow.
it's embarrassing to say, but I mean, I got no shame in it. I've came a
No,
long
no.
way.
I mean, we've all been there, man. Like
Yeah.
mistakes happen. I think really early on in the first season that I was hunting, I it was actually the night before I shot a bear with but it ended up being with a rifle, with my rifle, because I broke my bow the night before. But
Uh-huh.
because I think I had it drawn, and then in my head I was thinking, oh, I know, I'm just going to check my sweeping angle or something to see like
Uh-huh.
what kind of coverage I have in case something walks
Yeah.
by, and I just popped the strings off a cam straight away, and that's it. I
Yep.
don't have a
Yep.
press with me. My bow is effectively out of action, and then
Uh-huh.
the next morning, the very next morning, a bear walked
You took
past
the
me
rifle and
8 yards,
yeah.
8 yards away. You know, like
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would have been a perfect opportunity with a bow. I mean, obviously, bearing in mind, I probably would have drawn back at the wrong moment and spooked the
Yeah,
thing.
well,
But
I mean, at least
but
you can
even
get away
so,
with it with a shotgun sometimes.
but anyway, are there any stories when you're like hunting turkeys that spring to mind, like early on, maybe if you remember the first time that you were hunting turkeys with your dad, or is a moment when you realize that like actually I really love this. This is my jam.
This is my jam. We set up on a roost, and one of a roost that I don't think we had hunted before, or only had a few times. I was young. I had this bird pitch down off the tree. Oh, I don't know, 2, 3 feet from me, and was shredding.
Really?
Um, and I let's see.
Did you call beforehand?
Yeah, yeah. I called from we pitched we set up pretty close to the roost, closer than I normally would have.
Were you in a hide?
Um, yeah, no, we were we were
Just in the
we were
open?
hiding in the brush. we were we we were closer than I normally would like to be. Um, and this bird, um, we set up early in the dark. We didn't have a moon, so he couldn't see us, and we had a long time of sitting in the dark. So he was calm, and I called in the dark, just some soft cackle, soft calls, putts, murs, and gave him an aggressive fly down cackle. Um, and he pitched right to me. I mean, like, but right to me, not to the decoys, not 20 yards out. I mean, like, this joker landed feet from me, which I remember, and I remember letting him gobble and letting him, strut. And I mean, the jig was up. I didn't really care if we killed him or not. I actually, looking back, I probably did care. Now I wouldn't care if we killed him, because you know that's the experience that I was chasing, not the actual killing part.
Yes.
But then I probably would have wanted to kill him. Actually, no, I was young, so I was still, my fangs were still out for blood. Um,
So were you just pinned? You couldn't do anything. Or were you with
yeah,
a
we were
bow?
pinned. I
With
I
a
think I had a bow. I'm pretty confident I had a bow.
okay.
Yes, now that I think about it, yes, we did. I did have a bow. We were in close proximity to one of the farmhouses on the ranch, so I did have my bow,
Okay.
and we didn't want to wake anybody up, so I did have my bow.
So you just sat there with big eyes, just waiting for a
Uh huh.
chance.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he died quick. He
Oh, he
died
did.
quick. Yeah, yeah. I didn't. I mean, I let him strut around for a couple, 10, 15, 20 seconds. We didn't have any tom decoys or Jake decoys out, so he was just strutting around ahead. We had one decoy out because it was a single tom that was roosting close to the house, one of the houses on the property, and they wanted him gone because he was gobbling it,
Waking him up.
waking him up. So we were close to the house.
so
Could have worked out imperfectly.
so you just drew. So you were able to draw back and get a shot, like, and manage to get away
Yeah,
with it. Amazing.
I always set the decoys in a way that whoever the shooter is able to draw back and shoot. Um, even if we're gun hunting, you try to have the birds go past you, past the shooter, and then heading towards the caller or the decoys. Um,
Ah.
if so so once the bird passes you, you'll be able to, I don't want to say make movement, but it's already past what it's the threat of you. So
Yes.
it's looking at the decoys or listening, looking for the call. So it gives you a better chance of, if you're not in a blind, lifting your bow up, or raising your gun up to your knees or something.
So it's more of its like weak spot because it's like the back of its head. It's a similar way like
Essentially, I mean, even
yeah,
though they
okay.
could see, I think they could see 280 degrees.
Yeah. You're
So
at
I
least
mean,
in that window.
yeah, yeah, you're hopefully in that window.
That sounds amazing, dude. That must have been
It
pretty
was,
epic.
it was cool. It was cool. Um, uh, just last year, the other one that comes to mind,
Hmm.
last year or the year before. I think it might have been the year before. Um, we were set up on a very, very steep hill. and it was right where they fly down off the roost. And I put the ground blind out the day before, and I knew they were going to fly down to that spot because it's usually what they do off of this roost. And my dad, it was opening weekend, and my dad, I'm not joking. When the hill was like, couldn't really put a chair on the hill, like because it was that steep, you fall over in the chair.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is another embarrassing thing to go off. Here I am on a podcast telling all my embarrassing things, but it was kind of comical. Um, Long story short, we call this turkey in, comes running all the way in. My dad shoots it with his bow, and we're happy. It's a nice bird. And then this my dad was shooting from the chair, and I was hunting off my knees in the ground line. And this other turkey comes in and starts beating up the turkey that my dad just shot with his bow, the dead one. So
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, that's a pretty good bird. I guess I'm gonna try to take its head off with my bow. So I draw my bow back, and I'm leaning on my off my knees downhill,
Yes.
and right, and I
Yeah.
keep going, and I'm tracking the bird through the windows of the blind, tracking the bird, tracking the bird.
So you're like leaning
Next thing you
right back.
know, I'm leaning back too far on my knees with at full draw, too steep of a hill, and I fall over backwards
Oh
in the
no.
blind at full draw. I somehow shoved the bow into the ground, because it's dangerous at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
I snap an arrow, the arrow that's in my bow, knocked up, ready to
Not
roll
yeah.
into the ground. I fall over backwards, take the blind with me, with my dad in the blind, and start rolling down the hill in the blind with my dad. And we stop, we roll once or twice, and I look over it, and I'm like, holy shit, like, did that just happen? Like, but this has never happened to me. Like, this is wild. And I look at him, he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, are you okay? Because I was at full draw when,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, and I look up, I lift the wall of the blind up because I'm laying on my back. I lift the wall of the blind up, and I look over, and the turkey's still there trying to fight the dead turkey. So I knock another arrow, and I'm like, look over, I look at my bow, I'm like, okay, everything looks fine. And I draw back and shoot the turkey. And we had an opening day double that, I managed to roll down the hill halfway to kill, but it
No
was
way.
not, and again, not a proud moment, but we
That
were able to get it done.
that's got to be a proud moment, man. That's
Oh
like
man, I was like I can't believe that just happened. Like, what a shit show this was. But I mean,
I can only imagine, like you know the level of like red mist that turkey has that's
oh
like
yeah,
faded over its eyes. If even like a giant rolling snowball that's painted camo is rolling down the hill with dudes screaming
seriously,
inside it,
that was
it's
pretty much it. That was pretty much it. Like, I remember looking at my dad like, holy smokes, you're all right? Like, because that was not cool. Like, I'm sorry. Like, nobody wanted to roll down the hill at 7 o'clock in the morning. Like, yeah.
but it's also lucky though. It's so lucky, dude, that arrow snapped off and you didn't like
Oh
get
yeah,
hurt.
we
Because
got extremely lucky.
I've heard stories of people really hurting themselves, right? Like
Yeah,
you've got like a razor sharp thing on the end of that
yeah,
stick.
yeah,
Like you
definitely,
can
definitely.
cut the wrong part of you, cut your leg in the wrong way,
Uh
and
huh.
can be
Yep.
even lights out. That's
It could be. Yeah.
it's so lucky
It's still
and
a weapon. It's still a
yeah,
deadly weapon. Yeah.
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 That's wild.
Yeah.
So that's obviously a part of turkey hunting that you're not the most proud of, but I think that's a pretty
Yeah, I
good
thought it was fun.
medal of a story.
Yeah. Yeah.
What is like for you like the funnest part of turkey hunting? Like what is the part that you really enjoy? Because you said like even thinking about it now from your perspective now in one of the previous stories, it wasn't really the killing. There's the thing that's what it's all about. It's about the what is that moment that is like your favorite part?
It's a combination of watching new people kill birds, uh, or take them hunting realistically, or tricking the turkeys into making them do what I want them to do. Um, if if the new hunter misses, I feel bad for the new hunter.
Yeah.
Um, but the bird still, I still made the bird. We don't. I don't shoot turkeys. Very rarely do. If I go and take somebody or my wife or any turkey hunt that I'm on, it's not very often we shoot a turkey past 10 yards or 15 yards. Just because we all could shoot our bow out to whatever, even though one of the best shots I've ever seen was a headshot at 60 yards from a buddy of mine who's a professional archer. That
What?
was it was I'll tell that story in a minute. It was wild. Um, we try to shoot all our birds really close
Yeah.
and decoy them in and call them all the way to you and really trick the turkey. So when it's time to shoot the bird, there is no questions about it. That's probably the thing that I like most about turkey hunting.
That's yeah, I mean that's cool, man. It's nice
Yeah.
that you're able to give your skills and like those experiences on to other people as well and get them
Yeah.
into it too, man. So
Yeah.
what have you've helped quite a few people over the years. Anything spring into your mind about good moments helping like other folks?
Helping other people. Yeah. I took my cousin when he was still a junior. He didn't even bow hunt yet. I remember him shooting a bird that decoyed all the way in, and he hosed my Avian X decoy uh, with a
Oh,
shotgun
no.
after I told him not to. Um, you especially when you're gun hunting, there's a certain call you can make. It's a quick putt and a scratch with it to make the turkey's head come out instead of an alarm call. And I told him, I was like, hey, when I want you to shoot it, I'm going to make this call, and get ready because that's when it's time to shoot it. And the way it all worked out, he ended up shooting the decoy. He still killed the bird, but the bird was too close to the decoy with the shotgun. Um, that's probably he was young. He was 12, I think, and that was the first bird he killed. Um, putting him in my hand-me-down camo, something
Yeah.
that was way too big for him. Making him hike up the hill at 4 o'clock or 5:30 in the morning because you got to get in the dark. And yeah, it's probably one of my favorites. Or
What did you
watching
Okay.
my wife progress as a turkey hunter and as a bow hunter is probably my favorite. She's killed a lot of turkeys now, even
Yeah.
with my 3-year-old son. This will be his third turkey. This would be his fourth turkey season, and we're 3 for 3
Wow.
every year with him in the blind with us killing a bird. So it's with my wife killing a bird, I should say. So it's
That's
watching my
impressive.
wife kill birds is cool. She head shoots them only. It's just what she wants to do.
Yeah.
So she takes a lot of heads off every year.
Oh man.
It's fun.
It does look fun. I did try that early on when I started because you see a lot of, I guess, in the world of Instagram or YouTube, there's a lot of videos of people, it's also ethical as well. You're taking something's head
Yeah,
straight off. It's instant
it's gonna
KO.
happen or it's not gonna happen. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think for me there was actually two reasons. Well, one reason is that I have a very very long draw length.
Uh-huh.
I have a 33-inch draw, and so I
Having a
learned.
blind must be absolutely miserable for you.
Well, I've never really got in one.
Okay, I can tell you because I'm at 29 and a half, and every time I draw back, I'm like, what can I get away with without everything hitting?
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
I guess that's a problem I didn't even know that I had.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the issue with those big chopper blades is they're very long, right? Like they're
Uh-huh.
basically what I'm describing is a broadhead, which is 3 or 4 blades that can be 2 or 3 inches long each
Yeah.
blade.
Yeah.
So you're effectively like scalpel blades on
The
a
big
broadhead.
T.
Yeah, it's
That
like
2 3 inches.
like
Yeah.
like from front it would be a giant cross. But the
Yeah.
trouble is
Yeah.
when I'm running such a long draw length, arrows come as standard 32 inches.
Yeah.
So
You
I,
can't.
I actually,
Yeah.
the first time I drew back, it was just as a practice. Thankfully, it wasn't
Yeah.
like um,
Yeah.
I actually nicked my finger
I
with the
bet
blade because the
it
arrow
hit your
comes
hands.
back
Yeah.
further. Yeah, so
All the way.
it
Yeah.
could have been a lot worse, man.
Uh-huh.
It
You
just cut me a bit.
try shooting with just a rage or a rage
Oh
extreme
yeah,
or
I
standard
did. I
broadhead.
do now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
I
what my
use
wife does.
I use
She
an
just uses
expandable.
rages. Yeah.
Yeah, and it works really well. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's all
It
good.
takes their head off for sure. Yeah.
Okay, so well, one actually thing is like you've helped a bunch of people
Uh-huh.
and you really enjoy that like turkey hunting and helping folks. Did you think about becoming a guide at some point? I mean, we talked about this a little bit before.
Yeah. It's kind of yes, no. I mean, eh, if I had access to more properties, maybe I could be my own guide and do my own hunts every once in a while, type of thing. When I was younger, I thought about it, but then I also thought, there's not as much time to hunt for yourself or hunt with your, close friends,
Mm.
or your family. You don't really make that much money. Um, so
It's also the
yeah, yes and
family. It's
no.
also the family business as well, right? Like
Yeah, I've got the family business.
the dynamic with that be
The
like, oh, hey guys, screw you. I'm going to just do this other thing.
Yeah, yes and no. Now it'd be a lot harder to leave. But when I was younger, I mean, my parents didn't force me to join the family business at all. It
Okay.
was it was my decision. Um, Now it's hard. I would have a very hard time leaving.
Yeah. Yeah. I've like got a bunch of good stories from you already. The thing I was just wondering, like, I'd love to just jump into like a little more specific skill section
Yeah,
because turkey season's coming up fast, and
yeah,
so if it's okay with you, I'd love to get into like the
of
nitty
course.
gritty about like
Yeah,
what your
yeah. Hit
thought
me.
process is, what your experience is. By all means, jump in with any stories if you think that they are like relevant or
Okay.
explain an idea well. Um, and also, if I'm doing this in the wrong order, then definitely interrupt me because you know a lot more about this
No,
than
no
I do.
problem. Yeah,
So I would say first of all, it's like, I mean, you hunt both
everything
private and public as
public.
well, right?
Yeah.
So I personally have like not very much access to private, but I think it's good to just give the whole gamut of
Shebang.
the whole thing. So how do you choose a location?
I'd run my public. If I for turkeys, I'd hunt the same. I would. Maybe I would change a little bit on my calling strategy and how much I call if I was hunting public versus pressured versus unpressured birds. And essentially, that's all you can see. What you'll find out with public versus private, and you'll even get on private properties that are pressured way too much. The birds are
Yeah, I
pressured
think
way too
that sounds
much.
familiar.
Um, yeah.
um, okay, so if you've got like different locations to choose, like how do you choose a location? I guess this can come into like how you find birds in the first place. Like, is it with calling or is it to do with topography? Like, what's your thought process with that? If say you were approaching a new piece of land, whether it's public or private.
If we're gonna if we're gonna hunt
Yeah.
the spring season, because the flocks will join up usually a lot. The flocks will be bigger in the
Okay.
fall, right? The surrounding property, surrounding area, they all combine. So you in the fall you can see, like, let's just say 200 birds, and then in the spring they'll a group of 20 will go here, a group of 20 will go here, and they kind of live in their own areas. If we're doing the spring specifically, and it's a property that I'm public or private, I'm going to look for, and I've never been there. Um, First, I'm going to assume that there's turkeys on it by, um, either word of mouth or the property owner or someone says, "Yeah, I saw birds over here." Uh, I'm going to get there before the hunt, ideally, get there before the hunt. Um, Look for a open field, and then I'm going to look for a tall tree. And if the birds are there, great. If not, I'm going to go walk underneath that tree, um, to look for droppings. Because what I'm trying to do is find the roost tree, so I know where they're going to be at dark and in the morning
Okay.
and in the evening,
Okay.
essentially. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, and it's kind of area specific on what kind of, topography you're looking for. If you're only hunting a flat piece of property, they're going to go to the biggest, tallest tree usually. That's the open, which is typically, it's for me to say I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
for a redwood tree is different for you because there's a shitload of redwood trees in Fort Bragg. There's not as many of them, in Sonoma County in certain areas, right? Where I hunt, there's not as many. So if I go for look for a redwood tree on a ranch that's mostly oaks, that's a
Yes.
big thing, right? And that might be, if it all plays out right, it's going to be, um, closer towards a south facing slope, I would think, in a darker part of a darker part of a property, because it's usually, or excuse me, a north facing slope on a darker piece of property, that usually gets a little more rain or a little more
Okay.
wetter soil. Ideally, that tree is going to be mature enough where it has 15-foot arms on it, um, 50 feet up in the tree or
Yes.
25 feet out, right? So that birds gets to get out to a thick limb on the edge of the tree and gets to visualize
Oh,
everything that's around them, right? So before they pitch down, they get to see everything. They're not going to be um, in a big tight clump of trees, in the middle
yeah.
of the woods, right? They're going to want to see what they have to fly down to, you know, and that fly down might be jump out and they drop right down, or it might be a 200-yard glide or a 300-yard glide to where they want to go, or where they start their day. Um, the biggest thing with turkeys is they're very, and especially in the first week of the season, first 2 weeks of the season ish, maybe even 3 weeks of the season. If you can get there a week before the season, even better. Um, the hens are very cyclical, right? So if you see a bird in a field at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they're going to be close to their roosting tree because the day is
Yes.
almost done, right? And they fly up in the roosting tree with a decent amount of light left. They don't, even just because it gets dark at 8 o'clock or whatever, they'll fly up in the roosting tree with plenty of time to get up into the tree and analyze what's going on. They don't. It's not like because it's not like, oh, the lights went off, it's time to go to bed. No, they go to bed with
Okay.
with the lights
Interesting.
on still. Um, so if they're cyclical on time. If you see a bird at 12 o'clock in the afternoon or a group of birds at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, they're nowhere near their roost tree. Especially if you see hens at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, they're by their spot where they like to hang out for the entire day. There's probably a food source, water, and or cover. There's a combination of those two close by because that's kind of like they bed. They're almost like their bedding area, but they don't really bed that like a deer does. But there will be something by them that they want to keep them there, other than cover, other than food,
Yes.
other than water. If I'll be like, you
Yeah.
got to have at least two of the three for them to be there at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. And then, don't set, if you get there at sunrise the next morning or well before, you better expect a 6 hour sit for that turkey to come back through. Maybe a 5 hour if you're able to call them in, but you know, it's not going to happen right off the bat.
I think that's something that I've definitely suffered with is impatience in terms of calling and then seeing them come through. I had even set up a camera before and then see them come through like 2 or 3 hours later, right where I was.
So here's a drop of knowledge for you that no one ever talks about. Turkeys are designed in their structure for the hen to go to the tom,
Yeah.
not the tom to come to the hen,
Yeah.
right? So when the tom is strutting around, the turkey, the hen will give some type of body language to say, I'm ready to be bred, or I'm going to come to you and you're going to follow me and we're going to go do our thing, right?
Okay.
If you're sitting there blind calling because you hear a gobble on the other side of the ridge, or you see, or you think there's a bird around the corner, or whatever, it's against turkey's biology for the turkey to come to you.
Hmm.
But it's damn near impossible for you to go to the turkey because unless you're going to bum rush them or try to ninja sneak them, that's not how you want to do it, or not how I would like to do it. I mean, the whole fun of it is to watch them come to you.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. Like, it could take time sometimes for the bird to come all the way to you. So in the mornings, that's why I like to get ideally it happens quickly because I'm set up where they're going to be.
Yes. So say you've got to that spot and in where you are, it's like find the tallest tree, most likely redwoods. Where I am,
Or a spread out oak, a big oak that's spread
yes, with
out.
like nice branches that are like really far reaching
Yep.
from the
Yep.
tree. I guess you're looking then at like your environment. Do you you don't like you get to that tree and you look for droppings, or are
Yeah,
you
there'll be droppings and there'll be feathers underneath it.
okay? So you're glassing, so you
There'll be
find
sign.
so you got to find those trees by like glassing or whatever. I guess the thing that makes it a bit difficult is for me it's thick forest often. So finding those trees, I'm guessing for you it's a little easier to just be looking in your binos and going like, okay, there's a good tree. Or is it something else that's like a determining factor that helps you find where those trees are? They're at the top of a hill, or
They're usually by some type of field edge, some
okay,
type of edge for them to fly down into.
okay,
So, or a meadow or something like that. If I was to go up to your Fort Bragg, right?
yeah, yeah.
Are you in the coastal or close or more like towards on Highway 20?
Um, I'm actually up a little bit north of Fort Bragg. We've just got like a little property here that we stay on.
Okay.
But I actually do quite a bit of hunting just off 20, like
Okay.
in
So
the
if I was
thick.
hunting like in the thick between Willits and Fort Bragg,
Yeah,
I would start by getting up high in the afternoon or in the evening. Start in the afternoon,
yeah,
um, and cruising and trying to find them on open hillsides and trying to figure out where their roost is going to be. Once you find the general idea of where the roost would be, I would watch them fly up into the roost. And if I'm hunting a property that I don't know and I have the time, or I could go back to it, it's almost worth it to burn an afternoon or a morning, just to understand what it's gonna happen. So, because if you sit there and you watch it, if you know you can come back that day or tomorrow or a week or 3 days, if you watch them fly up into that tree and you set up where they took off from, you'll be in the money or
yeah.
pretty damn close to in the money.
Okay,
Of you know,
yeah, that's
so if
good
it's
to
at
know.
5 o'clock and he's gobbling, he's either on his roost tree or he's right next to his roost tree.
Okay, that's it's thanks, dude. It's like great info. The funny thing is, I've managed to find a little bit of success like in that area. I guess I've got like three birds, maybe three, I think. Um, but it's I've yet to find like where they're actually roosting because it's
Yeah.
such a big area and I'm traveling a lot and I've had quite a few managed to course them in and it's just been luck, I think.
So that the I mean it's how far you want to take it for turkeys realistically.
Yeah,
Before the season's really good, like now, because they're
yeah,
starting to get a little horned up.
yeah. I've noticed.
Yeah, especially with the sunshine. If we get some sunshine, it's going to get really good. Um, Later on, the toms will disperse out of the trees, but right now they're with the hens. They're still everybody's still together. The hens haven't gone off yet to lay eggs on their own, and the toms have had no reason yet to go search for hens. So now's the time that everybody's going to be together, and you'll be able to find a roost tree that they like, which can produce year after year. You know, I think the turkey season is a month and a half long,
Yeah, it's
but
long. It's
it's
long.
yeah, I think it's a 45-day season or 42-day season or something.
Yeah,
So I mean, if you find the tree that they like to hit, you'll be good.
and golden.
Yeah, you're golden.
Okay.
I mean, you might not. It might be that tree one day and the next tree the next day. Later on in the season, once everybody's dispersed and the toms are looking for hens, but that's more.
Okay. So I've got another question for you.
Yeah.
About we're still kind of in like the locating kind of area, figuring out what the good stuff is, like you were just saying. You said to me before in a previous conversation that you do sometimes use topo maps, online maps, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Like, is there any info that you can also look up? Say you don't get a chance to go to a place all the time, but you just got access and you want to kind of scout out where's good, other than just asking the farmer who could be like, yeah, they roost in that tree. If there is a way of sort of figuring
Um,
out a few things that way.
yeah, you could look on your topo. Of course, your tighter lines. They're not going to be on a thick, steep hillside the entire time. There might be a field. Other than topo, you want to use your imagery too to understand what's in those topo lines, right? Because if it's
Okay.
all like a thick, open hillside, you know, but if it's an open hillside with tight topo lines, you know that it's pretty steep,
Steep.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if it's wide topo lines with trees in it, they probably won't be hanging out too much in there unless they're using it as a travel corridor to go from something to another, right? Because they'll do some type of circle or some type of
Yes.
you know
A big loop.
some type of route that they like to do.
Yes.
Um, you know, you could use your topo lines to really understand where the route might go, and you can technically use the funnels and idea of where they're going to go through, and they're not going to jump right off the cliff edge type of thing.
Yes.
um, I think though that they will, it's more on understanding travel and if it's worth for them to go that way. They're not going to go up a steep hill unless they have to go up a steep hill.
Yes.
you know, or they're looking for, or the tom's searching for a hen. Here's a hen somewhere else.
Okay. Okay, cool. You also said a second ago, you were talking about how weather can affect their behavior now, specifically like if it gets sunny, which fingers crossed it does because it's been
Yeah,
pretty terrible
yeah,
for a long time.
yeah, definitely.
Um, but also, I guess in a more specific situation, like you're saying, like in a general way, like hunting is going to really pick up if it gets more sunny. But like from a day to day kind of situation, say you show up and it's rainy or it's misty or it's sunny for that morning, or like, are there any, how, is there anything like specific
Yeah.
about like when is just not even worth bothering or?
I go, if it's opening weekend, I'm going either way. I've gone opening weekend in the piss down rain with full moon, and I've gone where it's perfect conditions. Um, I think no matter what I'm hunting, I always have to remember to put myself in their shoes and slow down. If it's misty at night, they're not gonna want to jump out of bed. They might not want to. The hens might not want to. The toms might not want to because they're tired. They're wet. They had a rough night. You know, um, I think the best conditions would be a week of sunshine, um, and hot sunshine, no moon, so they can't see you when you're walking around in the dark because you're setting up, if you're setting up close to a roost tree. Um, and you get there pretty early and sit in the dark for a while. Um, it can get pretty hard sometimes if it's raining, because they might not fly down and start be too hot to trot to go looking for hens or going to fight other decoys or fight other birds. But you could kill them any conditions. Sunshine is best, I think, with minimal wind.
Okay, cool. That's good to know. So I'll keep an eye out. And it's also like, and it's interesting because different areas of California, you go inland to where you guys are. I'm guessing it's a whole lot hotter than it ever really gets in Fort Bragg.
Oh yeah,
But also, you only have to go 10 miles inland, and the temperature changes dramatically. So
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, if you're coastal, you'll probably have some type of mist or fog or wet grass every single
yeah,
morning.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, technically we're coastal, but it's not uncommon for it to be 70 degrees or 65 degrees by 7:30, 8
Yeah,
o'clock.
it warms up quick.
Yeah, it warms up quick.
Yeah.
Uh,
Can we talk about calling birds for a second?
yeah.
Like, I'd love to go through all the nuances of how.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I'm very primitive at the moment, but like, talk through the basics, and then go as advanced as you like. It would be great to
Okay.
hear the principles of what you think is a good way to locate, bring in birds, all that kind of, and what the strategy is around it.
Uh, Locating, I don't use a lot of calls for locating birds. I think birds are vocal enough on their own. Um, Pre-hunt scouting, I probably won't call. If I do, it'll be very minimal, and I'm only doing it because I can't find them.
Okay.
Um, like during the hunt, and the morning hunt did not work out the way I wanted to, I will call. Just a lot of loud, aggressive, loud yelping to try to use as some type of locating call,
Okay.
um, trying to get a bird to gobble. Um, During the hunt, um, ideally, I set up close to the roost or on the roost. Um, Ideally, I have a ground blind set up. If not, you could do it from the ground. It's just harder to do it with a bow from the ground. Um, or maybe I want to do it from the ground that day, for doing something different or a challenge. Um, I will match the intensity of what the hens are doing in the tree. I'm never first one to call. I won't make a noise if a hen hasn't made a noise yet. Um, Depending on how close I am, will depend on what kind of noise I make first. If I'm stupid close to them, like under 50 yards, under 75 yards from them, I'll do some really, 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 really soft putts and purrs and just general, I'm a turkey talk and everything's okay. And I'll match what I hear in the tree. If I'm not hearing anything in the tree, I'm not making any noise. As soon as the hens start, you'll notice that the hens start with some type of putts and purrs, some aggressive putts and purrs. Then they'll start yelping, then they'll start cutting, and then they'll start yelp. They'll bring up the tempo, and when they bring up the tempo, is when you'll start to hear a fly down cackle, and then usually a bird will pitch down to the field or to wherever they're going to start the day. And that's usually the lead hen, the matriarch, the dominant hen of the group. If you could get that hen to get anywhere in your direction, you're going to be in the money. If you could call that bird hen into you, even better. If you could get that bird to fly right all the way down to you and you're close, even better because the toms are going to be right behind her. This is generally speaking, 4 to 10 birds to 15 birds in a roost.
Okay.
Because it kind of depends on how many birds you're hunting also.
Yeah.
But if you're hunting one single tom, I'm not gonna, or one tom that's in a tree, I'm not gonna call that much. I'm not gonna. I don't want him. He only is listening for me, and he's only listening to me. So I don't want him to know all my tricks before it's time for it, right? But if there's a big group of birds and you're matching 10 birds in a tree, then you could be your own flock of turkeys type of thing because they don't always know who's who, right?
Okay.
So the cadence is gonna of the hen prior to fly down is gonna increase. And this is your cadence also from the live bird. It's pretty much saying, I'm content, I'm awake, I'm getting aggravated that I'm in the tree. I'm getting aggravated I'm in the tree. I'm ready to fly down. I'm ready to fly down. Everybody come with me. Everybody come with me. Hey, I'm flying down. That's what that turkey is saying.
Yes.
Right? Starts off, I'm in the tree. Put, put, purr, purr. I'm relaxed. Everything's cool. Hey, guys, I'm over here. Soft yelps, soft purrs. Maybe a little bit of cutting mixed in. Bring it up the tempo a little bit. I'm in the tree. I'm in the tree. Loud, aggressive. Cackle. I'm flying out of the tree. Right?
Yeah, great.
If you could piss off that turkey before she even flies out, match her, cut her off, call over the top of her, she'll get aggressive and she'll get the party started for you, right?
Okay.
Because she doesn't like being talked over to. She doesn't like being, thinking that there's a hen somewhere else, like being above her.
Trying to be more dominant.
She's the boss bitch.
Yeah.
She's the dominant, hen in the group. What that it can backfire too though, because at that time she might just go off and do her own thing and pull the whole flock with her.
Okay.
But I like to run the game of try to call in the turkeys before they even come out of the tree. Once they come out of the tree, I'm looking and I'm judging the situation on how many jakes and how many toms are in the group. If traditionally the tom's going to run in 3 packs, and there'll be one dominant tom in that 3 pack, and there's a pecking order.
Literally.
And there'll be series of pecking orders of different 3 packs.
Okay.
The jakes the young toms are going to can be strung out multiple groups. They haven't broke off yet into like these are the three boys I'm hanging out with. These are my three boys that I'm hanging out with. If you can't get the tom to come to you right off the bat, and this is assuming you could visualize everything, or you could understand by how many gobbles come off at the same time. Like if you call and five gobbles go off at the same time, they all sound really high pitch. They're probably jakes, right?
Yes. Okay.
If if you call and one gobble goes off and it's you know gut wrenching, sounds deep, sounds like a deep gobble at it. It's one tom. It's one mature tom, and that's the one you want to kill. It's way easier to call in the jakes than it is to call in the tom. And if you could get the jakes coming, the toms are going to follow
Yes.
the jakes because they're going to be like, "Hey, wait a minute, why is the young bloods over there getting all the action? This is my flock. I'm supposed to be doing this." So it's almost easier to call. It's easier to call in the jakes,
Okay.
which work the jakes to you. The toms are gonna follow, guaranteed, guaranteed, because they can't have it. They can't have it. Whether you have a Jake decoy or a Tom decoy out or not. Um, I think in hunting anything when you use a call, and especially bow hunting anything, um, call or no call, you have to learn the body language of it. You know, if because a bow, it takes so much. The extra step is needed for a bow, um, especially closing the distance from 40 to 5 feet, 40 yards to 5 feet,
Yes.
when you could have just shot them 10 times over with a shotgun.
Yeah.
At 40
Yeah.
yards.
Yeah.
Um, that's when you have to read the body language. Uh, I'll wait 5 minutes in between calling. I'll cut off the hens. I'll get aggressive on the call. Um, Sometimes I'll shut up and I'll make the tom come. Again, you gotta remember it's nature for the hen to go to the
Yes. Yeah.
tom, not the tom to the hen. So you got to kind of frustrate the tom in a way to make him go to you.
Yes.
Um, I think one of the better ways to doing it, if you know the property well, is just to get in front of them.
You know where they're going.
Right? Yeah, you know that they're gonna pass by that oak tree at 8 o'clock. Go set up at that oak tree. You might be 200 yards away from them, but you don't have to be a great caller, and you don't have to make the right noises. They're gonna come to you. You know, so a little surprise and wait, just a little soft call to let them know that you're there. Don't worry about if you sound bad. I mean, you hear enough turkeys in the wild,
Some of them sounds
it
so
doesn't
bad.
matter. It doesn't matter. You don't know if they were chomping on whole acorns for the last 3 days, and their gullet is full of, marble-sized acorns, or they're pecking at grass or eating earthworms. I mean, each bird sounds different. Age, and what they're eating makes a bird sound completely different, even from one day to the next.
Okay, so you were saying about like Jake's is the key if you're trying to like get the toms to follow. I mean, obviously hens first and
If you can't
foremost.
get the tom to come
Yes.
right off the bat.
So talk me through. I mean, you already mentioned this a little bit, but I just like talk me through that process of just trying to get them interested and get them to come in. You're saying just it's all about just gentle yelping. Is that the thing, or is it a
Start
mixture?
off gentle.
Okay.
Start off gentle. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people have heard the expression, if you walk into a bar and you start yelling right off the bat, if you're trying to pick up a chick, yeah, it's not going to work. You might need to go in there and massage it around a little bit and see who's out, who's ready to go, and then read the room as best you can.
Okay.
I think that's a big one.
Okay. Reading the room. You're saying about body language and changing body position and coloring even to me before.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, you could read the turkeys. You read the turkeys, if you see that you calling, and let's just say this is his tail fan, right?
Okay.
And you're calling and you see his tail fan,
Like
right, do
pulsing.
this, right? Popping. This is pretty aggressive, but if you see it popping,
Okay. So it's
that means that he's drumming,
so it's fully
right?
expanded, but like
It's
also
fully
kind
expanded,
of
and you see
pulsing a
it. You,
bit.
you you see it pulse,
Yeah.
right? He's drumming, right? And he's forcing himself to keep his tail fan open, right? Because in their drum, it's literally an air pocket
Yes.
that it's forcing himself to quill out his feathers. So okay, that's one way to tell. Like, hey, what I'm saying is making him show that I got what's going on, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right. And you can watch their head's color change, right? It could go from a red to a blue, right? You could watch their snood is their little doohickey that hangs off their
Yeah.
nose,
Yeah.
and it's assuming that you're close enough. If you shoot a turkey that's got a snood hanging down over its beak, that means you completely tricked that bird into coming in,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? You completely like that is like I am relaxed, I'm ready to go, right? If you got a snood that's coming out like this, he goes, I'm not so sure about this. I'm not so sure about this. That's what that turkey's body language is saying,
Interesting. It's like
right?
his dangleberry
Is
is
it's
loose.
his dingleberry tells you what's going on. I mean, but people don't look at it, they don't understand it because they don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But if you really kind of pay attention to what the body language and really look at what they're doing, like they get nervous, they're good. Like I told you before, they're gonna pick their heads up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And then
I'll never,
and everything's gonna go
yeah,
suck
I'll
up.
never set a hen turkey decoy. Upright hen is like one of the worst decoys you could have, right? So you have an upright hen like this,
Yeah.
right? And this is kind of hard for me to explain if we don't do the video, but if its head is straight up in the air, right?
Yeah.
If
Like
you
pushed
tilt
forward.
its head down
Yeah.
just a little bit, that body position says, I'm cool, what's going on? I'm looking for food.
Yes.
I'm not quite feeding, but I'm looking for food and I'm up looking around of what's happening. This position is one of the head up, stretched out, is one of the worst things you could ever have in the turkey woods. I mean,
In both a
think about it. Every turkey that's ever ran away from you is always head
yeah.
up,
Yeah.
looking like cockeyed, looking away at you. And that so your decoys have to also show that like things are cool down here.
I mean, it's so true. I've seen that body language many times before. Before
Uh-huh.
things all go wrong very quickly.
Yep.
So it's very true, man.
Uh, One of my favorite little
Yeah.
tips and tricks is I keep a roll of fishing line in my turkey vest,
Okay.
and I attach it to the stake or the decoy. So when you pull on the line, it moves the decoy. It moves the head of the decoy.
Yeah.
It moves the stake, so the turkey goes back and forth.
Okay. Just
It's
jiggles.
movement.
It just
It
jiggles a
movement.
little
It's
bit.
movement. Those things always are moving at some point. Whether the head's going left and right, left and right, left and right, even if they're standing still, if they're calm, they're moving.
Yeah.
If they're not calm,
Then that.
they're going to be looking at you, neck out, straight at you, looking hard.
And you
So
jiggling.
a little bit of movement, a little bit of movement, a little
So
bit of
you're
movement, a
jiggling
little bit
that
of
like
movement.
fishing line all the time, or is it just like every now and then you're like, oh,
I'm trying
okay,
to read the
yeah,
situation. I'm trying. I don't want to do it too much. I mean, they probably have a brain the size of your fingernail, but I maybe overthink it that if they might think that turkey only knows how to go left and right. So I won't do it the entire time, but definitely a little bit of movement.
it might.
A little bit of movement's good.
Okay, good. That's an awesome trick to know, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I love it. Okay, so you were talking about decoys. Don't be like just avoid like a fully upright kind of jam. You said is it like a bedded down, like a laid down hen? Is that
So
good?
there's
Or
a lay down
talk
hen.
through the decoys that you think are
Yeah.
good.
So if you're not sure what you're hunting, uh, and or how many really birds are on the property, less is more. I think a Jake decoy and a feeding hen or upright hen tilted down a little
Yeah.
bit is good. If it's later in the season, a lay down hen, that's the body position of I'm ready to be bred, is always good. Uh, if you're hunting a lot of birds, I think you should hunt a lot of decoys because you're doing the best you can to pull something to you, and you could spread them out too. If there is a tom or a Jake decoy that you're hunting, and you pull a tom to you, chances are he's going to go to that decoy to first investigate whether he's going to get his ass kicked or not,
Yes.
or if he's going to go start a fight. So that decoy is more important in placement than any of the other decoys. I think if you put your Tom decoy, you know, 30 yards past you, you know, at the bottom end of your setup where you can't shoot, that means you're shooting that bird as he comes across you. And that's it. That's all you're going to get, which is hard to do with a bow.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I've missed a lot of turkeys walking past me at 10 yards, you know, or 15 yards going at a good clip. But if you put that turkey just a little bit past her, you can shoot diagonally towards it, you know, and he makes it to the decoy, he's going to stop. He's going to turn. He's going to fight the decoy. He's going to give you time to draw back, anchor, decide where you want to shoot him. You know, wait for him to turn a certain way. You know, my two favorite shots are shooting him square in the back or in the head. I don't like shooting them in the wings because their vitals are small and their wing bones are really tough.
Yes.
So it's penetration can be an issue, especially with a big. You want to shoot the biggest broadhead you absolutely can.
Yes.
So the back's soft, and if you push it through their back, you're going to break their chest bone, their breastplate
Yes.
from the backside. You know, from the inside out, it's going to break, which is it's easier for it to break that way. So I think shooting in the back is the best shot with a bow.
That's good to know. Like I was confused. I shoot like a big poundage, big draw length, heavy arrow,
Same.
you know, just in general, because that's just
Same.
a setup. I don't bother switching around my setup for anything really. It feels overcomplicated. But I was surprised. I did shoot like a broadside on a turkey last season with a big expander. It's like a 3-blade expandable. So it's a
Uh-huh.
big cutting area
Yeah.
and really did the business. But I was surprised because I've only ever got like full pass throughs because I'm pulling like 74 pounds, 33-inch draw.
Uh-huh. So
A
that's a
600
good. I
grain
wish I
arrow,
had that.
like
Yeah, I wish I had that. Yeah,
it hits things,
that's
it hits
ideal.
things pretty hard. But I was surprised. It went the whole way through both sides, you know, of the
Uh-huh.
turkey. But like the Fletchers actually stuck and stopped the arrow, which I was like, wow, a turkey actually stopped this thing. I'm astounded.
So I'm 28 and a half, and I shoot a 520 grain arrow at right about 80 pounds, 79 and a half pounds, right?
Yes.
I've shot a broadside before, and you hit him square in the wing
Yeah.
bone, and it snaps the wing bone, but it doesn't even enter the body cavity.
Yeah. That's wild.
Like it's wild. It's wild. If you shoot one with a bow, get up. If you hit it and it runs away, even with your arrow in it, chase him down. Don't let him. Don't just like, oh, it's not a deer, it's not a pig or an elk where you got to be quiet and let him go run off and die. You'll never find him if you just let him run off. The best thing you could do is chase that thing down and keep visual eye contact on it the entire time till it runs into a brush pile or runs into a stump or something or a down tree limb that it's trying to go hide into, and then you know where it's at. Right? If you shoot it and he goes running and you don't see where he goes,
Go.
trying to track a turkey is extremely difficult. Like extremely difficult. They don't bleed like even any animal. If they do bleed, there's not a blood trail. There's drops of blood somewhere that they bled.
Yes.
I mean, all you really get is a trail through grass of trying to decipher dew in the grass or not. You know, ran over dew.
Yeah. Yeah.
So chase him down.
It's so funny you say
and if you
that.
catch up to him, just
So
I mean, I hate to say it, give him the boot because give him the boot.
it's funny you say that because it's absolutely true. That is so counter to what you would normally do with any animal that you shoot with a bow. It's about giving it time to like bed down, calm down, and just let it expire.
Don't let it
But
let it get adrenaline.
First
No,
thing,
chase that
so
choker down.
first thing I ever shot, like when I started hunting with a bow, was a turkey. It was actually locally here, and like for whatever reason, I think it was my own inexperience, but like my primal instinct at that moment of shooting the turkey, and it ran off down through a bush and down a slope. I just got up and I just chased that thing down.
Booked it.
I like
Best way to
ran
do
after
it.
that thing like a maniac. And at the time, I was like, "Wow, that was pretty like dumb that I just chased after it." But now I'm finding out actually that was the right thing to do.
No, that's I think that's the exact. I mean, That's the best thing you can do. They're super hard to find if you don't know where they went exactly where they went.
Wow. Okay.
General area is not good enough.
Okay, good.
There's, you know,
Good to know.
yeah.
Okay, so I've got just a couple more questions if you're
Okay.
good for time.
Uh, yeah, I got about 20 minutes
Okay,
tops.
yeah,
It'll
no.
be about,
We'll be done. I
can
think we'll
I?
be done long before that.
Okay.
Okay, perfect.
All right, cool.
So, let's talk about how to trick the turkey's eyes because their eyes are crazy. Like they're so able to
Yeah.
see any movement, they see in color. Yeah, like what do you think? I've got a few things as a list here, but like things to talk about, like what camo to use, like leafy jackets if they're a good idea, obviously blinds, and then also another thing which I've kind of tried out and had. I think, I mean, maybe it's just psychological, but like the electromagnetic stuff as well, like the hex kind of things,
Yeah, the hex suits.
that stuff, like all those things. Like, what do you think works? What do you think doesn't work? What would you advise?
I think any decent camo will work. Does not have to be 3D. Um,
Okay.
like the leafy stuff. Face mask and gloves is mandatory if you're hunting outside of a blind. Of course, if you're hunting in a blind, I think wearing all black with an all black, um, face mask is better because you're trying to stay dark inside the blind,
Yes.
which is something that also I'll put into thought on setup when I have my blind. Is don't face the east. If you can help it, don't face east
Okay.
because you don't want that sun going right into the
Yeah, you
blind.
want to be in shade.
You want to be dark as possible. Um, Camo wise, match whatever you can as best you can. Uh, Movement is the biggest thing. Um, when I call, I try to keep my calls in a position that they're not going to see them. Uh, and I will always keep a mouth read in my mouth ready to go just in case that turkey comes in too close and I can't keep my pot call, um, my slate call close in a position where you can't see it. And I also think having a reed in your mouth is also just a, you know, head one, head two, head one, head two different birds
Yes.
type of thing.
Okay.
But you don't have to. I mean, one call will work the whole way through.
Yeah.
Um, but movement's the biggest thing. I mean, they'll see you scratch your nose at 100 yards.
Yeah.
If you wait, a simple wave goodbye at 100 yards, they'll see that. So I think waiting waiting to draw on the correct moment to draw is very important. Um, Pay attention to the bird you want to kill, not the other birds that are with it. If three toms come in and the bird you want to kill is strutting facing away, draw your bow. If the other birds start to get a little nervous, he's last one to get a little nervous because he can't see you. He doesn't know what's going on.
Yes.
Um, I think no matter whatever you're shooting at, I think the biggest mistake new hunters make, and even seasoned hunters, doesn't matter gun or bow, is they don't take that extra half a second to really aim. We all could shoot a quarter at 20 yards with our bows multiple times over. I've missed turkeys at 20 yards like it's nobody's business. I shot it one time with my recurve bow at like 5 feet, and my anchor point is supposed to be my middle finger coming to my thumb, or excuse me, coming to the corner of my mouth, and that string touches the tip of my nose with my recurve.
Yes.
I don't even think I got halfway drawn. I mean, I literally went like that and plucked the string, and I missed a turkey at 5 feet with my recurve. Like, how could you? I didn't take. I didn't like take a second and focus on the shot. I remember shooting at him when I was a kid. Didn't even look through my peep sight.
Really?
Like, dude, not even looking through my peep. Just sending arrows. I get up at 4 in the morning to call a bird in to not even look through your peep. Like, really? Like, come on now. Like, focus on the shot, and you'll make the shot. I think that's more important than all of it when it comes down to it.
It's a very good point, and I think it also potentially comes down to shot sequence as well, and just having
Yeah.
that routine of whatever steps go into taking a good shot helps you get over that like crazy chemical overload that's happening.
So one thing that I do on every animal that I kill, or I try to do on every animal that I kill, is before I actually shoot and before the when I I'm reading the situation like, hey, my shot's about to come, I tell myself, aim, 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 aim. And I might not even be aiming that much more than I normally would aim.
Hmm.
But what I'm forcing myself to do is to take that extra half a second for my pin to settle,
Yep.
right? Just this last year, we were hunting blacktails, and I was on a stalk, and I got to like 75 yards, and it was a steep downhill shot, and I was comfortable at that distance, but I wasn't really crazy about the shot because it was a pretty steep shot, and angle cut the whole nine
Yeah.
yards, and I think, okay, I'm gonna get 5 more yards on this buck, and I'm gonna try to shoot it. In the time it took 5 yards, I blew him out. I look back up the hill, and my wife was glassing, and she's waving her arms for me to come to her. I run up the hill. She spots a giant buck on the other, well, giant, a really nice buck on the other side of the canyon. I put my headphones in, right? And I say, okay, I'm going to go around. Tell me if he beds down. Or this was at like 10:30 in the morning. So he was going to bed pretty
Yeah.
soon and walk me in on him. She walks me in on him, right? Tells me where she thinks he went through the trees, a whole 9 yards. I sneak in to 35 yards on a really nice 3 pointer. And I see him, and I have my headphones in, and I look over, and he's facing me, and his ears are pointed right at me, and I'm like, oh shit, he's got me pegged. His neck's straight out, his front legs are stiff, his body language is telling me that he sees or hears something that is not right. I range it 35 yards. I draw my bow back. I'm like, okay. I was shooting a option sight, so you could flip it open and have
Yes.
a single pin or
Yep.
not. I've shot fixed pins for a long time. 35 splitting pins is not something hard for me.
Yep.
So I say, okay, I split my pins, my 30 and my 40. I shoot for a straight frontal shot. I take my time on the shot. I go through my shot sequence. I have a clean break on my release, the whole 9 yards. Couldn't have been a more executed, perfect shot that I was going through. And I missed. It went right in between his legs. And I started cursing. Am I allowed to curse on the
Yeah, of course.
podcast? Under my breath, I'm like, shit, fuck, shit, shit, fuck, fuck. I'm pissed because I just spent like the last 300 yards in my socks, you know, sneaking in on a blacktail in 105-degree heat for it all to lead up to the moment that I miss at 35 yards after I take my time, but I could hit a softball at 100 yards, you know, consistently. Like, I'm pissed.
Yeah.
And luckily, the buck must have not saw me or he just heard me coming in because he didn't take off running.
Okay.
He just spun around and turned broadside.
Oh, nice.
So I go, this time I'm flustered. I put another arrow in, I draw back, and I'm so flustered that I'm like, I went low. So I'm like, oh, maybe I ranged the bush in front of him and he's probably like 38 or 40.
Yes.
So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna put my 40-yard pin mid-level and mid-shoulder and shoot. I'm so flustered that the pin's going from the front off the target all the way past him. And I hear my wife on my headphones say, breathe, breathe. And immediately all that said to me was aim,
Yeah.
aim,
Yeah.
aim.
Yeah.
Because I was out of my shot sequence because I was so flustered. And I took my time, I aimed, took that extra half a second, let it rip, perfect shot. Buck went 60 yards down the hill on a dead run and died. So taking that extra like 2 seconds, extra half a second just to aim is everything you need.
Crucial.
Doesn't matter what you're shooting. Yeah. Doesn't matter what you're shooting.
It's so nice to have like the voice of God in your ear
Oh yeah,
saving you.
Yeah, that time I needed it. That time I needed it.
That's a great
Uh,
story. That's a great story,
yeah.
man. So I think, unless there's anything that you feel like you'd love to cover more about how to chase turkeys, if there's anything that you feel like I should have asked.
Mm, turkey wise, I mean, no, I think decoy placement's good. Where they're at time wise is where they're going to be the next day. Um, they're cyclical. If they're at 4 p.m., they're going to be there 12 hours
Yeah.
later, or roughly.
Okay.
So he's going to be close to that spot. Might not be there at 4 a.m., but he's going to be there come sunrise.
Yeah.
Um, Matching the situation is really big. Taking your time to aim. Don't move unless you have to move. I don't think sneaking in on turkeys is a smart idea. I don't think like I would rather try to get ahead of them or sneak into 100 yards and then stop and sit down and try to call them in.
Yeah.
Because if you blow a turkey out with a bow, it's really, really hard to kill them.
Yeah.
It's if you're pushing them
Yeah.
along because they hear you, it's really hard to kill
Yeah.
them. Yeah, do that if that's the only time you get to hunt. This is you're not going to come back to the spot for a month or type of thing. But if you can come back, don't push the bird
Okay.
out. Um,
Good to know.
what else? I like to let them sit for a week.
Okay, good. I was just about to ask if you have a favorite way of cooking or prepping them. So you let them sit for a week, like you hang them at like what temperature?
Uh, well, I'll do is I'll kill the bird, or someone will kill the bird. Um, Hands over at West Coast Archery Shop,
Yeah.
told me about this a lot of years ago. Is you breast them out and then put them in the refrigerator for a week
Okay.
in a plastic bag, or 5 days. So what that does is all those proteins start to break up and they're not tough anymore. It's like eating a farm raised pen bird. My favorite way is to butterfly them and
Okay.
make turkey parmesan. Instead of same idea, or hammering them out and
Okay.
making turkey nuggets are always good. uh, Alan, who is a guy you should probably have on the podcast. He's a professional archer. He's a good chef. He's a great archery shot. He was the one that said that headshot one at 60 yards.
Oh, really?
Um,
Okay.
yeah, it was pretty wicked. He makes the turkey chili out of his. It's really good. I think those are the best ways. Taking care of the fan, you could fan them out on a board, nail it open, right?
Okay.
And then you
Yeah.
could pour salt on the fan and on the
Yes.
beard, and let it sit for a few weeks and keep the salt, dry it out. Keep in mind, if you have any rats or mice in your garage, they will eat the beard. Like I used to have like not hundreds, but a lot of turkey beards, and the mice have finally gotten to them and eaten them up pretty good. Um,
Good to know.
and then cut the spurs off, uh, at the knees. And if you want to save those, you can. I
Yeah.
mean,
I
spur
got a
length,
few.
spur length. I think anything over an inch and a half is pretty big. Also got to figure um, beard length, depending on where you're at. It's a lot of it. Like
Mm.
where you're at. If you shoot a bird that has a 10-inch beard, that's actually anywhere that's pretty big. But they get a lot
Okay.
of beard rot. That if they're dragging their beard
Yeah.
constantly
Yeah. In
in
rough country.
moisture, it's gonna keep it nasty. But if they're dragging their beard in not that drier conditions, it has a chance to grow
Yes.
bigger.
Okay. That's good to know.
Anything over 9 inches I think is considered a trophy.
Okay. I'll
Um,
have to get the old tape measure
yeah, I
and
mean,
see.
but
I've got a few out there.
realistically, hey man, I've shot tons of jakes. I ain't afraid to shoot a jake,
Yeah.
right? And especially if I'm not afraid to have my friends shoot jakes. When we go into hunts and I with somebody new, or if I'm taking somebody, I always tell them, you're up first. If you want to shoot a jake, shoot a jake. I don't care. It's up to you. This is totally your gig. Like
Yeah.
they all eat the same, right? I mean, it's for the experience. I mean, it
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there you
doesn't
go.
matter. I mean, what is there really a difference between a 8 inch beard and a 9.5 inch beard? Nine and a
Yeah.
half or an inch and a half? Yeah, okay, but it's not like you're looking at a 100 inch buck versus a 150 inch buck. You know, who cares? Shoot what you want to shoot. What makes you
Yeah.
happy?
Have a good time. Put meat in the freezer.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's why I like shooting turkeys and I like shooting pigs. You shoot an 80-pound pig with your bow. I shot an 80-pound pig with a bow. I'm stoked. There's no difference between that and a 100-pound pig or a 120-pound pig.
Yeah.
Sure, I had fun. Same with the turkey.
Thanks again, Joe. Thank you for all the information.
Yeah,
Thank you for the amazing stories.
of course. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to listening through to this whole thing again and putting it into action in this season that's coming up. So
Yeah,
thanks for all the
of
info.
course. Good luck this spring.
Maybe, yeah, I'll definitely give you a shout at some point. And
Yeah, I'd like a text at 7:05 open in the morning.
okay, I'll see if I can make that happen.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks again, Joe. Right, that wraps up another corker of an episode. I don't think I'll ever look at turkey hunting with quite the same lens again. I want to give a big thank you to Joe for sharing all his stories and his skills with me today. I am excited to put them to good use soon. Fingers crossed it will be this coming weekend, or maybe it's next weekend. I need to need to do my research properly. Well, at least the dates part. But if you want to follow Joe, you can check him out on Instagram, and also if you're curious and you want to check out his family company, then by all means check them out. I put a link in the show notes. Also, I want to give a quick thank you to Adrian from West Coast Archery Shop for connecting me and Joe for this episode. That was absolutely perfect. Thank you for that. And quick spoiler alert, I'll be recording an episode with Adrian and Hans in a few weeks' time, so I'm excited for that one. And while I'm doing thank yous, thank you to everyone who's listening. Your dogged persistence is making me feel quite lovely. I guess there's always a fear when you do something like this that you'll just be screaming into a void. But I'm happy to report that folks appear to be interested. So thanks again, everyone. That's all for now. Until next time.